when somebody wants to lose weight, we sit there and we go, oh, hey, I help people lose weight. And you're super, super generic in that moment. And you don't stand out. And there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people and businesses that help people lose weight. When you're the coach that stands out there and says, we help get people back in the gym, make it easy, and make it so it's not something that's going to be frightening for you. And these aren't marketing words that I'm using. I'm just trying to prove the point. Now, all of a sudden they go, oh, this person can help get me into the gym and I'm not afraid of it. They're going to make the thing that I perceive as my biggest problem in losing weight easy, which means I can then lose weight. And all of a sudden they became very relatable by the words that you were using. Hey everyone, Steve here. Quick announcement before we dive into today's episode. Next week, Tuesday the 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be kicking off the last free blueprint that we're going to run. The blueprint is a 4-week, 4-part course where we break down exactly what you need to grow and scale your business that you desire to have. It's going to break down attracting your ideal customer by using the voice that they want to hear, creating an irresistible offer that ensures they show up ready to buy, going over your sales process and making sure not only can you sell, but you're selling the right thing, i.e. charging what you're worth, and not only getting clients, but creating raving fans that refer more clients. We're going to break all this down completely for free. The last time we're doing this, register in the link below, fill out that survey so I understand a little bit more about you. 4 weeks, 4 hours. You'd be crazy not to absolutely do this. I can't wait to see you there. Welcome back to Beyond the Pump, where today we are going to break down the top 3 biggest mistakes that you are making with your marketing plan as an up-and-coming or seasoned health coach, especially in the online space. So, Andrew, Brandon, how you guys doing today?
He said,
Okay. Struggle busting over here, huh?
He's a little under the weather, guys.
It's been a rough 24 hours.
A little under the weather.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's easy to be. It's the fall season, right? Everyone's getting sick. Kids have hand, foot, and mouth bringing it home.
Got to bump up that vitamin C, solid 3 grams a day. Otherwise, you're going to get sick. So again, I don't know if that's an actual recommendation. Do not follow my advice when it comes to supplementation, especially vitamin C, unless you would like to empty out your system. I think 3 grams will help you with that. But anyway, so top 3 mistakes that coaches are making today when it comes to their marketing. And this first one I feel like is going to sound super simple, but it really is going to tie in deep to kind of the last one that we really break down and why it matters. And driving from that first step all the way to that third step, or at least how we're going to break it down today, is probably one of the biggest factors on successful or lack thereof marketing plans overarching, or rather how many leads you generate, right? First of all, I'd like to clarify or just kind of add some context. When I talk about marketing, or I think when we talk about marketing, the general idea is your ability to create leads, or in other words, gather somebody's contact information so you now have the ability to go ahead and talk to them and communicate with them, right? A marketing plan isn't necessarily like, sure, we want to produce sales at the end of the day, but once you start having that conversation, it transitions out of lead generation and into sales conversion, right? So I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. This is your ability to generate people who want to talk to you about whatever it is you're trying to sell them. So big thing number 1 is you don't have a plan. And like I said, it sounds really simple, and you probably on like your knee-jerk reaction is, oh no, I plan out what I'm doing. And I'm going to call bullshit on that. I don't think you are, and you're definitely not doing it as much as you could be. So when I think planning, not only am I planning for maybe this week and this month, but overarching, what does maybe this quarter or even potentially this year look like? How many times do we wake up and go, oh, I feel like, or I think, or I will post this thing today? Or as you're sitting and scrolling and you're trying to figure out what's going on the internet, these days, all of a sudden you see a cool post and like, all right, cool, I'm going to do something along the lines of that. So not having a plan is really kind of the mistake number one. Andrew, Brandon, when it comes to not having a plan, like what do you guys have to add to that piece? And, Andrew, I might almost kind of pick in a little bit more on the coaching side, right? Like, hey, let's go down this road of coaching and trying to get somebody a result without a plan. How well is this going to work?
I mean, depends on how well you can pay attention to the details and refine it. So I think too many people definitely go out and assume that's not a high skill kind of endeavor, right? And I think that there's always layers to layers, and people that are worried about, having a multi-year marketing plan that's going to be targeted at joint ventures and so, like all that weird stuff that just isn't appropriate. So I think a lot of it is developmental when it comes to planning. If you don't know what to do, you have to get some experience. You have to get messy, so that way you can allow the next problem to solve to surface. Maybe it's the messaging, maybe it's the copy, maybe it's the graphics, maybe it's the way that the shot list is set up. Like there's just so many things that go into making something appealing to the appropriate person. I'm sure we would all agree that, someone that's into maybe like some like goth culture wouldn't exactly be into football necessarily. And so when we're trying to find the right person, it requires an assessment, not only of the target demographic to create that really defined plan, but also the target person that you are trying to effectively speak to, as well as understanding your own capabilities and competencies. So that's kind of what I would add to the planning for how to establish sound marketing practices.
Yeah. And, if you have no plan, building a plan for 1 week is your most logical first step.
Yeah.
If you're consistently building a plan 1 week in advance, now it's about how do we bridge from 1 week to 2 to 3 to a whole month, right? Then eventually turns in from that 1 month to 2 months to maybe 3 months. Now, one thing I'd like to caution too, and especially I would say a majority of coaches tend to be a little kind of creative to some extent. We have this, I like to go out and build a thing. Now, if you build a 3-month plan, heck, if you build a 1-month plan, whatever it is, and on day 4, it's not working, like whatever you thought was going to happen in month 2, it's not going down the road that you had hoped it was going to go down. You don't have to stick to the plan. You can adjust the plan. The plan is there to make sure that you have a target, but also B, a measurable thing that you're hoping to get out of said plan. Having a plan of I'm just going to post once a day for 90 days, that's a pretty basic plan. A slightly more advanced plan would be I'm going to post every single day for 90 days to produce 270 leads. And if you're 45 days in and you'll have only produced 5 leads, well, hey, you're halfway through and you're not halfway through in a lead generation. Something has to change. And now we have something to go back to, that roadmap we built that is going to enable us to kind of look at some data, look at what we were doing and start to make some changes on what we should do, right? So the plan is a plan, but it's also very much a, how do I look back at what I did and make changes based upon the results that I was generating? And I think far too often people get so married to it, or they're so afraid of building one because they think they have to. No, like when one of us comes into your business and we go, hey, why are things not going well? And like, I don't know. We're going to say, well, show us some data about something. And a marketing plan is useful data because now we can understand what you historically have done without having to go to every single email platform, whatever, from a high level and really start to look like, okay, cool. What was the plan built to do? And is it doing that? No, it's not. All right. Was the plan flawed or were the actions within the plan flawed? Right. So I think that's a good one. Andrew, before we kind of fully started here, you brought up a point on this, the marketing piece. And I think that's a really valid, like kind of big thing, number 2 that people are missing. So if you want to bring that one up, that'd be beneficial, I think.
Are you talking about the problem-awareness continuum? And
yeah.
So, when we look at marketing psychology in general, or really just like human interest, if we make it and kind of really zoom out, because it is relevant to not just marketing, but realistically any type of thing where you're trying to influence behavior. whether that's your relationships, whether it's your, service delivery, whether it's your professional life and you're having a tough conversation with your boss, or, a peer, or like even someone that may report to you. You have to be able to sift through self-interest, because that's, at the end of the day, everyone's constantly looking at things through the filter of what's in this for me. And if you can really understand that, you'll start to become more curious, I think. And that's where, and I've seen this through the Pollock Marketing Group, is the original place where I found the best graphic for it. So if you're near a computer and you want to Google it, Pollock Marketing Group, Problem-Awareness Continuum, gives you a nice little neat graphic to understand just the big high notes, which in essence takes someone from completely unaware, and you don't know what you don't know is a very common phrase that I've heard a lot, across the last several years, realistically, as people are starting to become aware that they don't know everything. So the idea is, well, how do you take someone that doesn't understand that they need the thing you have, and then how do you bridge the value to it? And, I'll use a story that I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but I had a buddy named Lucas. We were trainers at Lifetime together, and he was so frustrated because he was so tired of having to convince people to do things that were inherently good for them. So what he ended up doing was he got out of being in the health and fitness industry, where he was making probably, a comparable salary to what a nurse would make. I think starting out nursing is anywhere from 50 to 65. This guy was probably writing 60 to 80K, in training and gross, right? So if you take the idea that he transitioned industries completely because he misattributed his lack of influence to his professional career, right? I promise you that if Lucas hasn't endeavored to improve his communication styles and help build value around different recommendations, i.e. influencing that behavior, he's still going to struggle regardless of whatever industries he is in. It's just, there might be a little more gravity to healthcare professionals as to, like, if you don't do this, you're going to die. Well, we see that people continuously fill hospital beds repeatedly anyway. So taking someone from unaware to I have the best thing for you, there are several intermediary steps, one of which is, if step 0 or 1 is unawareness, step 2 is when you now understand that you have a problem, and you can't tell someone, hey, you're jacked up, you need to fix that. Like, hey, stop smoking. That's a big thing, right? And everyone's gonna like, yeah, whatever, fuck off, because they don't understand the gravity of the situation. And this also ties in and overlays well with the trans-theoretical model of behavior change in terms of the pre-contemplative phase, where someone's not even thinking about changing at all, right? So that's where I say a lot of these are just psychological human interest concepts. But unaware, now if someone understands, they're watching stories, they're hearing, cautionary tales, it triggers something in your thalamus and basically says like, oh, I might have that thing, without directly coming out, and then people kind of like having to push it down. And that's why during a consultation, even when we're talking about the sales process, you have to be really careful with what you're pushing. And if you think about DARE and that drug campaign, people used to be like, oh, drugs cause a problem, right? And how many kids still do drugs these days? Like, I know so many friends that grew up and ended up with, methamphetamine proclivities. And so people have to understand they have a problem. Once they have a problem, they start looking for the solution. What a lot of people do, and this is really relevant for the marketing piece, is that they go from, a lot of people are scrolling through their feed. They're not thinking about the thing that you have, the thing that you feel really passionate about, the thing that you understand is so important for someone to essentially purchase or get guidance from. And they say, hey, I have coaching, sign up for me. It's $1,000 down and $250 a month with a 60-day cancellation. You're like, what the fuck? Now scroll, right? So now it's interesting because people are resorting to more gimmicky hooks and overproduction of their social media, because they're not taking the time to build problem awareness, which is essentially what a hook is. Hey, here are the top 3 things that you're doing wrong, or here are the top 3 things you should be doing in your program, or whatever it is. What you're doing is you're creating a problem awareness of like, oh, I'm not doing that. I have a problem. Now let me look for a solution. If you do that enough times, eventually people start looking for a product. So unaware, now they're problem aware in step 2, right? And then they're solution aware. We're like, oh, okay, I have diabetes. I should probably start exercising. They're not thinking about what trainer they want to go to. They're not thinking about the facility. They're just like, what do I need to do? Do I need to do cardio? Do I need to do strength training? And as they start to go through this continuum, the next thing they'll do is they'll start looking for a specific product. And that's where now you have the opportunity to pitch people or whatever. And it creates less psychological friction or less resistance. Or when we think about people overcoming objectives, a lot of times their objectives, will effectively come up, their obstacles, but there wasn't sufficient problem awareness that was brought up, which is why people talk about digging the pain, which I think is personally a gross sales process in terms of like, if you try to make, deliberately so people cry during a consultation, that, that's kind of gross. And I've, seen just as many compliance or sales professionals that err on both sides. But that's kind of where you go again: unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, or service aware, or brand aware, right? And then most aware, which is where they've consumed, they now understand how you do business. And that's effectively where you really want to try to get people from a repetitive perspective, because that's where you get referrals from. So more along the lines of, from a psychological perspective, the transtheoretical model of behavior change. You got to be able to sift through those things a little bit. And it takes some experience if you don't have any, or it takes a little bit of competency. And it, more than anything, takes experience and practice reps. So if you're not, always try to see how you can get someone to admit, whether it's a head nod or a hand raise is what I call that. That's when you know that they have a problem, when they can hear it in someone else. And now you can maybe start to create some progress towards making them product aware. But you're always going from unaware, they don't know who the fuck you are, to product aware. Now you have to build the problem, and you have to build value in the solution. And then they eventually ask, how much does it cost to work with you? And that's kind of the goal, I think, in a lot of ways, from a solopreneur, or realistically anyone that's in sales. So.
Yeah, no. And that's a really kind of great point, and call it accidentally, intentionally, a great segue into what I think the third biggest obstacle is you're not communicating in the appropriate language with your potential buyer. And it's not you're not speaking English and they don't speak English or hear English type mentality, right? It's a level where you're not using words that they understand or relate to. They're somewhere in that like problem aware, maybe solution aware gap. They're somewhere in that zone. They don't know specifically that you exist and you can solve their problem, but your stuff is coming in front of them. And we tend to go down this road of, oh, I have this formula that creates all these amazing results. And step 1 is this thing. And step 2 is that thing. And then step 3 is this thing. And step 4 here, we reverse diet that thing. And step 5, we're going to do hypertrophies over here. And then step 7s, we're going to do, Tabatas over here. And we're going to do all these things. And it's going to be amazing. And everybody's like, I heard Tabata once and it doesn't sound great. And are you even solving my I'm confused. Where when somebody comes down this road of like, all right, and let's take the easy one in today's world, although 2023 was the first year that as a country we became less obese than the prior year. So maybe this isn't the easy thing, as easy as the thing as it was, but hashtag GLP-1s, anyone? Easy way out. Sorry. Just some thoughts and emotional feelings around that. Hopefully you guys are learning some great habits alongside of it, and then it'll be worthwhile. Anyways, back on track. When somebody wants to lose weight, we sit there and we go, oh, hey, I help people lose weight. And you're super, super generic in that moment. And you don't stand out, and you don't have any kind of leg up on the next person who is saying, I help people lose weight. And there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people and businesses that help people lose weight. But when somebody says, I want to lose weight, and in my brain, my vehicle, the way that I believe I should be losing weight, so to speak, is by getting to the gym consistently. But actually, I'm afraid to go to the gym because I have no idea what I'm doing. When you're the coach that stands out there and says, we help get people back in the gym, make it easy, and make it so it's not something that's going to be frightening for you. And these aren't marketing words that I'm using. I'm just trying to prove the point. Now, all of a sudden they go, oh, this person can help get me into the gym and I'm not afraid of it. They're going to make it easy for me. They're going to make the thing that I perceive as my biggest problem in losing weight easy, which means I can then lose weight. Now, all of a sudden, by saying, hey, you can go get somebody into the gym, make it easy for them, make it so they're not scared, make it so it's not intimidating, whatever it might be, you're still helping them lose weight, but you didn't actually say you're helping them lose weight. And all of a sudden they became very relatable by the words that you were using. Now, when you level it up and we start to go down that road of I help people get to the gym, not intimidating, etc., and you stack in by using my simplified 3-step GYM process or whatever the case may be, and again, this is just random here for this. Now, all of a sudden, not only are you relatable because you're talking about their specific, what I call micro problem to them, and they heard it, you now have a very unique, very specific thing that only you have. So when we talk about kind of that fourth, fifth step in the continuum that you mentioned, Andrew, the general idea is I have this thing, this person going to help me. And oh, by the way, they're the only person that has this thing that I understand that can help me. Now, I didn't tell you to go down the road of, oh, G is get your ass out of bed, and Y is whatever, whatever, and M is this thing as well, and muscular endurance and whatever. I told you to say, I have my 3-step gym process that gets you back to the gym easily, seamlessly, without it being intimidating. You're actually addressing the things that matter to somebody or going to cause them to want to go take that action. So when we think about it, you want to talk in their language. At some point in time before you became as smart as you were today, you use their language. You don't use that anymore because right? Hey, Brandon, can you talk to me about something in nutrition that you know now, but you didn't know when you were 10 years ago, that has nothing to do with your path to become an RD, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard for you to dig up 10 years ago before you started down this path and use the words you used to use. Right? Like tell me something today that you absolutely know that 10 years ago you're like, I didn't really know, and explain it in those terms. That is a hard thing for Brandon to be able to, like, you can see his eyes and his face going, wait, am I actually going to have to say something here? Let me dig this up, because it's just a challenge. It's a challenge for me sometimes because you just get into that like super nerd mode where you're going down this road and I learned all this thing and I just want to share it. I'm excited, right? Sometimes I listen to Andrew talk and he uses all these big ass words and I'm like, I have no idea what he's saying. Like early on in our relationship, I was like, I think I said to you, like, Andrew, I have to look up at least
thesaurus
every single conversation that we have, just because. And now I appreciate the idea of learning, but it also makes Andrew a little unrelatable. It makes you feel different about that kind of person, and both positives and potential negatives. But that's just something to be aware of, that remember, when you're selling a thing, you're passionate about it and you should know a lot about it, which means you're not overly relatable. So,
well, and before we move on from that one, I think it's really important to, like, tactically, a lot of people don't know what kind of vernacular they use, because often who checks tape, right, so to speak, who records themselves, who goes back, and a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around that. And so are there any platforms or any places that they can potentially see their reading level, or that they can potentially get someone to verify how relatable or easy to understand those word choices or that specific way of writing or speaking that might exist online today, such as like Hemingway or anything like that you recommend?
Well, I was just going to say Hemingway is probably my favorite website to go to. It literally highlights words for you. It tells you what grade reading level it is and how relatable you then you can infer based upon that information. Sadly, you want to try to get things in like 3rd and 4th grade reading level when you're trying to communicate. And that I say sad because we go in this road of like, oh, most people, everybody we're communicating with have graduated high school.
Yeah.
Like we would expect to be able to say, oh, 12th grade reading level, no problem. The reality is 12th grade, like when you think back to high school, vocabulary words, things like that, those are like 48 syllables long sometimes. And that's a hard word to potentially remember because you never use it. But also when you're reading it and you have to slow down to enunciate the word versus continue to take in the sentence or what you're reading, it all falls out of their brain. So how do we stay 3rd to 5th grade? And again, 3rd better, 4th kind of good, 5th still not bad, but 6th, 7th, 8th, that starts to get hard. That's a great website to go to, and it's free. The other site that I like to use is ChatGPT. It's a great brainstorming partner, AI in general. And hey, I want to help people lose weight. Typically my person is insert a few things about them. Give me 5 micro problems that they're facing. I don't have enough time. I don't like to go to the gym. Whatever it is, and make content and build your plan and bridge that kind of continuum gap, if you will, around some of those micro problems that come up. because you don't need to tell somebody who wants to gain more lean muscle, you need to gain more lean. Like, they already know that. They got that part. Somebody who wants to lose weight, you don't, hey, you got to lose weight. No shit. They know. They already got that piece. What is going to help them get there is the thing that's key. And you're going to have to find the thing that they're caring about emotionally that's going to get them to investigate and move from problem aware all the way to that specific product service aware, and then eventually purchase, and then they can go to kind of full on solution aware. So
yeah, and that ChatGPT, you know, or any kind of AI platform is so instrumental if you don't even know where to start, to help you kind of maybe put a framework together. So if you guys want to know where to find that, we'll drop that at the end of how you can get that GPT or that AI guide that we've created for you. So make sure you stick around till then. Brandon.
Yeah. Sorry, my voice is super hoarse. But yeah, I think, yeah, everything we've touched upon. I think the one thing too, I would just add on with all of this is start small, grow big. And then what has really helped me is implementing just SMART goals into your plan or whatever it may be. Because yeah, you can go broad, but you know, the more specific, the more you're able to get into that, the better direction I think you'll be able to get from that. And I think that ties into almost everything that we talked about, you know, even talking with your audience. If it's a broad audience, your language is going to be harder to use because you're trying to, maybe you're talking to people that do understand what like glycolysis or gluconeogenesis is. And then maybe you're talking to people that don't understand what even a macronutrient is. So really understanding what the specifics are during your marketing plan. Again, you know, takes time, takes practice, but yeah, SMART goals. I'm a big fan, but I think we'll just stick on that specific aspect of when you are setting up those goals, because that can be a whole episode in itself. But yeah, how's my voice though? Is that
it's pretty good?
Pretty bad.
Yeah, but you know, and I think you bring up a great point, both of you. You know, when we talk about cognitive distortions, it's the things that we think exist that may not actually be in reality, right? Like if you have a bad dating history and someone does something and it triggers you, that person may not necessarily be that thing. They might not be a narcissist. Maybe they just, you know, didn't put the toilet seat down, right? So before you start doing that, there is this thing called the curse of knowledge. And this cognitive distortion, it basically insinuates that you expect everyone to know what you know. And it really, it creates the big divide from professionals to consumers. Right. This is where a lot of jargon comes in, a lot of vernacular. When we talk about hypertrophy, you know, and I think one of the worst things that, while we're talking about communication, kind of to sum up my last little bit here, is that you have to be able to speak in the consumer's language, which means you need to understand what you understand that they don't. And that's there, you know, ties in with the concept of arbitrage. How do you leverage something that someone else is looking for that doesn't have, that maybe you're 1 or 2 steps ahead? Like, how do you then make that thing accessible to them? Oddly enough, the best coaches in the world aren't the ones that are super competent. And when I say best coaches, I mean the people that are more relatable, that are coming across. They're the people that are usually 1 to 2 steps ahead of the consumers, because they still are tied to the problem, versus alienating the consumer of like, what do you mean tone up? And I used to be this trainer where, you know, people would come in, they'd sit across from me for a consultation and they'd be like, I just want to tone up. And I'm like, oh, you mean you want to build muscle? They're like, no, I want to tone up. And I'm like, oh, you want to lose fat? Like, no, I want to tone up. And I was trying to put square peg round hole, because I insisted that I had to be right about the type of language that I was using, instead of just being like, yeah, cool, we'll tone up, and taking that, translating it into meaningful physiological training practices. And so I think that that's really where you have to understand that no one, and pretend that no one knows what the fuck you're talking about. And that will actually make you a lot more relatable, as if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old.
I was going to make the joke about that, of sometimes it's got to be hard to be you, Andrew, based upon assuming everybody else knows as much as you know. So
I don't know anything at this point. The more you know,
can't imagine having to wake up and be Andrew every day.
It's constantly panic. It's constantly panic. I'm like, everything's fucked up. How do I fix everything? And like, you know, honestly, I wish I knew less sometimes.
But so yeah, ChatGPT guide. This is by far one of the most requested things that we've put together to date, which is exciting. I enjoy this kind of game, and the game of marketing, if you will, and it's a great way to be able to go out and actually get to it. The best way to get the guide is going to be heading over to I'm going to say Instagram right now. You know, keep it clean and simple. Let's not overcomplicate stuff. And right now, I'm not going to force you to do the whole give me your name, email, phone number on a landing page, which, listen, if I was advising you, I would tell you to do that on a landing page. But at the same point, I really want just to get this into people's hands. So let's keep it to DM. You can shoot Andrew, Brandon, or I a DM on Instagram, on Facebook. Join our Facebook group, and we will go ahead and get you that resource. You can literally copy and paste the prompts, put it in the ChatGPT, and it will help you build out some of those conversation pieces and get down to those micro problems. So you know, how do I bridge that continuum gap, and how do I actually start building my plan as the top 3 things. So in recap here, the top 3 things that coaches are absolutely messing up is going to be 1, don't have a plan. Without a plan, you don't know what you're doing, but we also can't go back and actually diagnose what we did and what kind of solutions we have to fix whatever might be going wrong. Number 2 is how do we bring them through these phases of ultimately having no idea what their problem even is, all the way to knowing that your solution is the one that solved it for them. Those 5 steps that Andrew mentioned. And then at the end of the day, using the language that is going to relate to them, not just a generalized, hey, you want to come and lose some weight, but rather help them bridge that gap of whatever the obstacle for them is, i.e., I want to get back to the gym, talking to them about that so that way it's something that they want to go do. So that's it. Those are our big 3 tips for you today. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. We want to help more. We've had a couple people send in some questions and want us to break down some things. So please make those comments, send us some emails, reach out to us on social media. We'll be more than happy to break down the topic that you want us to break down. Until next time.